Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is tools and techniques for fire safety. Speak about everything that needs to be taken care in cases of any fire hazard being present. Remember, fire hazards are present both in your residential complexes where you actually stay and in your workspace. Probably the probability of a fire hazard at workspace is very high. So please go through this presentation very carefully because we will be discussing all about the fire extinguisher, the different types of fire, and so on and so forth. Come on, let us to first and foremost thing, we need to understand what is basic firefighting. Now, basic firefighting, we need to classify fire into different types. They might be A, B, C. We'll talk about them. Don't worry about it. Types of heat emission that comes around it, the combustion that takes place, what kind of heat that comes around. Then we talk about the different kinds of fire extinguisher. This is something which we need to uh, correlate with the types of fire because then only we can put off the fire altogether, and then we'll speak about the types of fire extinguisher, right? So basic firefighting technique, these four things will be covering it in today's presentation. So exactly what is fire? Fire is this triangle, if I want to say so. It is a combination of heat, it's a combination of fuel, it's a combination of oxygen. You need to eliminate any one of them, mind you, and you are safe. So basically, a fire is a process in where the substance combined chemically along with oxygen, and this oxygen is freely available. Remember, in our atmosphere, approximately 21% of the atmosphere consists of oxygen. So typically it emits what? It emits heat, it emits light, it emits smokes, and which basically is the fire triangle all about it. So again, remember, which one is the temperature, one is the content or the fuel we are talking about, and the third aspect is the oxygen. We need to eliminate any one of them to put off. That is what has been notified. This triangle is very important for firefighting abilities. You need to understand what you need to cut off. At certain fires, you need to cut off oxygen and the fire gets put off. At certain fire, you have to put off the heat. Probably you pour in waters, the most common technique that we actually use to reduce the heat. And then there are other elements where you can separate the fuel altogether. Let the fuel be limited and the fire will automatically vanish. So basically, what kind of classes of fires are there about it? Let us understand. Class of fire A is basically of wood, paper, and textile, and we are giving a pictographical symbols which comes around it. Now, in this particular classification, it tells me what about the various extinguisher that comes around it. In types of wood, I suppose you lower the temperature, that is all about water or foam spray or even dry powder will do. So remember, this is with anything which is wetting in nature does the trick. In terms of classification of the flammable liquid, in case the fire has an origination in flammable liquid, what are the flammable liquid? It is all gasoline, it is all oil paints, other liquids, anything and everything. So the pictographical representation as to what has been mentioned out here, and how do we go about it? Do not put water into it, because at the end of the day, the viscosity of the oil is lesser than the water, and it will float over the water and the fire will still burn on, it will still continue. So what do you go around it? You have to utilize dry powder, you have to utilize foam spray, probably even sand will do around it. So this is what we look to go around it. Classification of C is all about gases. A fire which originates from gases. Probably what happens is all about the electrical equipments which have been exposed, and then there is a combustible fuel. Out here, it is only the dry powder that works to put off the fire. Remember, a fire with the origin in gases, with the flammable gases, only dry powder will work the trick. Still then, there are certain combustible materials, metals, alloys which are very susceptible to fire. So this is what we known as a class D fire, and we need to take proper precautions around it. Remember, the class D fire will tell you what exactly needs to be done. It is all about the powder, or in fact a powder which should be chemically not reacting with the metals at all. So you have to be very specific of the powder that you're going around it, because of the fuel that comes around it. Classification of F is all about your cooking oils, your vegetable oil that comes around it. Some countries prefer this as a K classification. So basically, how do you go about it is again the wet chemical that we are looking into it. And remember, cooking oil, no water, absolutely no water. You are only spreading the fire, and so on and so forth. So with this, we come to understanding of various origin of fire. How do we classify the fire in five types: A, B, C, D, F slash K, if you want to say so. So class A fire, it's an ordinary thing which actually happens in your domestic or in a residential spaces, domestic spaces. Is basically all about trashes, cloth which been catching fire. So put off. The easiest way to put it off is by utilization of water. In cases of class B, about the combustion which relates to gases and oil, what happens? How do you go about it? It is your cutting of the oxygen that needs to be taken care of it. You have to use dry powder. Energize electrical equipment, as the case might be. We are talking around here. This is the class C fire that comes around. We need to understand all together. And last but not the least is the materials with your requirement for what? For your metals which might be very combustible, like potassium, sodium, magnesium, and so on and so forth. So remember to put it off with powder, but powder which is not going to react with the ingredients thereof. So how do we remove? Types of removing fire. Did I say the triangle and any one of them? With fuel, you can lead it to starvations in sense of eliminating the fuel altogether, removing the sources of the content part. In terms of air, can we again remove the air with smothering or blanketing it with a foam altogether? With heat, the easiest way to go around is again going or reducing the heat altogether by the application of water. So these are things that comes around it. We need to understand everything now and then out there, different types of fire that comes around. Let us understand the type of extinguisher that comes. Water type extinguisher. What is water type extinguisher? It's a ring or a pin on the handle stop. This is what we are looking into it. This is the ring or the pin which handle stop, which we need to remove altogether. It acts as a tamper-proof seal. The moment there is a fire, please break those seals, and you know the extinguisher needs to be checked. Inside this sturdy, absolutely sturdy steel case, you will find high pressure gas, often colored, usually by orange or blue. So most of the extinguishers are filled with water. Definitely, if you look into it, this is the water that comes around. This is the pressure that comes around. The moment you remove this thing, it goes up. This goes down, and there is an ejaculations out here, absolutely out here, which comes around here, which needs to understand altogether. So this is a high water pressure that comes around it. So it is a very easy techniques to build a fire extinguisher, and is one of the most common thing that has been there in the process altogether. So let us understand what is the powder type or DCP extinguisher. Again, the same process altogether. Remember, the gas is out here. This is the gas that I'm talking about it. You have the pressure, you have the nozzle, and this spreads out in this particular fashion. You have the handle, and you need to press it out. You need to manually press it out so that it goes down and the gases comes up. See, this is the pressure that comes around it. High pressure gas canister that comes around, and dry chemical carbon dioxide flows from this top altogether all towards the outside thing. So remember, you need to put on the pressure gauge according to the requirement of the fires. If it is a very small fire, you can have less pressure. If it is very high pressure, high fire, or probably the chances of the fire spreading is very high. Utilize a very high pressure and extinguish the fire immediately. Similarly, the foam extinguishers, as simple as it is all about it is all about the aspiration foam noodles that nozzle that comes around it. Simple techniques of the handle that comes, the pressure gauges around here, it comes down, and we are putting the pressure gauges. Remember, the pressure gauge tells me what are the pressure that comes around it. The discharge lever will actually allow the foam to come up and basically take care of the fire. It will eliminate the supply of oxygen to the fire altogether. This is a simple mechanism for the foam extinguisher. So I've told you about gas, I have told you about, sorry, I've told you the powder, I've told you about the water, I've told you about the foam extinguisher. Let us come to what is a carbon dioxide extinguisher. Remember, carbon dioxide extinguisher at an operating level, we have a safety pin. Remember, it is again akin to the water pressure. It has a safety pin. You need to remove this thing, and probably with it, this is a nozzle from where actually the carbon dioxide gas comes around it and eliminates the presence or reduces the presence of oxygen less than 5%, 6%, or even extinguish it below 3%, 2% to extinguish the fire. That is what we are looking into it. This is the discharge tube that we are talking about. The control valve is out here. We have to know, understand, and the gas is filled in the carbon dioxide gas is filled in the cylinder, and it is a liquid carbon dioxide gas that needs to be taken care of, understood. So, what are the advantages of having a carbon dioxide extinguisher? It's a rapid in action, definitely yes. Independent of atmospheric pressure. It is an inert gas which quickly disperses and doesn't leave any sort of smell or trace altogether. It is very safe as far as electricity is concerned because it does not conduct electricity. It can be used in in fact, most of the first stage of highly flammable liquid fires that comes around it, and penetrates inaccessible places, inaccessible where there is a lot of materials, equipment comes around it, and you are standing here altogether. So what do you go, how do you go around? So attach these places all together. There is an obstruction. What you do is you give a gas, and the gas will actually percolates through the thing. So it penetrates inaccessible places. This is the basic concepts of the carbon dioxide extinguisher. Remember, the discharge horns allows the gas to expand 450 times when it is directed towards the fire. It's 450 times what has been pressured. See, I have shown you a pic for your understanding altogether. Probably, what are the disadvantages? These are all the advantages. In fact, one of the best fire extinguisher which I will suggest. eh, the total weight is very heavy. You know, when it relations to the amount or the quantity that you go around, it is considerably heavy, and there's no visibly way to check the contents altogether. There are no visibility because it's basic carbon dioxide. You do not know what is happening inside. So, usage of fire extinguisher in terms of water, you will be utilizing only for solid paper, solid things, and not for anything else altogether. Similarly, for foam, you will be using for solid paper, absolutely yes, flammable liquid, absolutely yes, oils, absolutely yes, but not for electrical equipments or flammable gas. Similarly, for dry powder, something except for oils and flat you can utilize everywhere. Remember, carbon dioxide again, except for solid papers and solid work and flammable gas, you can utilize it altogether. So one of the basic best concept that comes around here is dry powder. Ultimate thing is the blanket, which basically cuts up the supply of oxygen. Oxygen or blanket can be utilized in either of the cases, simply of the fire triangle. If you are supplying cutting off the oxygen level altogether, it extinguishes the fire. So that's it about it. Let us understand what is PPE, the personal protective equipment that we talk about it. It is a protective clothing comprising of your helmets, your goggles, your full attire, your shoes. Absolutely. Why? Because it prevents any form of injuries, any form of infection. The hazard addressed by the protective equipment includes everything, be it physical, be it electrical, be it chemical, be it heat, be it biological origin, or for that matter even your born particulate matters or suspended matters that comes around it. So yes, we need to embrace PPE when we are in your workplace, and definitely when we are actually fighting fires or deterring fire hazards altogether. So let us understand what are the modern mechanism that has come into play for fighting fires. First and first thing is the closed circuit television cameras. This is from something which comes around it. I have shown pic, and for your understanding also, because the closed circuit television cameras will tell it to you the extent of the fire, the spread of the fire, how to, if there are any sparks around there, any of the incident, you can be preemptive if you are proactive. Next is a smoke detector, which the pixels mentioned basically detects a rise or a combustion of fuel that might come across. It's the smoke which it detects, and the composition, if it changes in the air from the balance of nitrogen and oxygen that comes around it, the alarm goes off. I'll show you the pic of the alarm also for your understanding. No doubt about it. We will say it. MCP is the manual call point. You actually break this glass, it's written out there, break this glass and the fire will go on, or the fire alarm will go on. This is the hooter which will start sensitizing people, informing people, telling people fire, 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 beware, fire, 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 as the case might be, or whatever the recordings that across it. We'll talk about the safety gadgets, fire alarm panel board. This monitors everything as for the temperature of a particular area is concerned. It tells out the smoke, if there are any further emission of the smoke that comes around it. Everything can be notified out here in this particular dashboard that is there. It will tell it to you if everything is going smooth or there are certain things to be causing altogether. We will talk about the safety gadget in terms of the sprinkler system. Now it is mostly incorporated even in your domestic areas apart from your commercial places, wherein there is a possibility of the fire being having being breakout. So need understand what exactly we look into it. At times the things are like this, in which there is a glass tube with a red thing comes around it. In case if you find yeah, this sprinkler system is not functioning automatically, not doing it, you just have to break it. Once you break it, it does starts flow around it. See, everything is mentioned out here also. So you need to break it manually if in case, but in most of the cases, believe me or not, it is automatically broken down, and the water starts sprinkling all other all around the places altogether. Now, how does this sprinkler works around it, or why does it get the auto break point? It is basically when it has been notified that there is a change in the temperature, there is a change in the smoke content of the room. Probably thereafter, we are actually looking to go for the fire sprinkling system. I hope this is very clear with all of us. If anybody has any issues, to let me know. Absolutely. The safety gadgets, basically, if you look at it, this is a glorifying example of the fire hydrant working system. This is where the water will be flowing through altogether from one point to another point, and at the point of required spaces, the fire hoses are present. It's the real term, and you can actually unwind it, absolutely unwind it. And this has been actually be wound up in this fashion, and this pipe will get elongated. So that is what the safety hazard is all about, the safety gap that comes around it. See, another of the hose box that I'm trying to give it to you for your better understanding, and so on and so forth. Then there is something called a single hydrant, where you need to rotate this thing. Absolutely, this needs to be rotated, and you will ensure that the fire would come up. You can always put in your pipes out in this fixtures once you open it up, and you can fight the with help of this. So to control major fire, always coordinate with your engineering system or the department. See, first and foremost thing, the alarm needs to be broken down. If you it is MCP that you go going at manual collar point, if you look into it, we can open the fire hydrant, unlock it, we can break it up and take out your pipes and actually the hose, direct the hose towards the fire. Now the only point is you have to put a pressure out here so that the water or the carbon dioxide, usually it is the water, which will come out of. In terms of other things that eventually that comes around it, wrap a person. If a person has got caught fire, you should wrap him up or her up in a towel, in a blanket, absolutely. Roll him around the on the ground, roll her on the ground, so that the fire get extinguished. Basically you are cutting off the supply of oxygen. There are something called fire blanket which are readily available. If not, any blanket will do around it. I simply believe in the pass method. What is the pass method? Is something which is happening with these kind of fire fighting mechanism or equipment. Pass stands for P for pull, A for aims, S for squeeze, and S for sweep. So basically, when you are pulling and aiming, you need to aim first thing, first and for you need to pull. See, this is what we are going to go around it. This is the point that needs to be taken care of. Once you have pulled, then you have aim and then squeeze. This once you squeeze it out, absolutely, and then sweep. How do you sweep? This is the way you sweep. You will be directing the fires in this particular fashion so that it works in your favor altogether. This is how you will sweep around it. So again, pull it out, aim it out, squeeze it out, and sweep it out. This is what we are looking at it. Absolutely the pass method of firefighting. Similarly, in cases of things, the smoke will and definitely does kill immediately. So please allow fire to kill slowly, but smoke will kill you immediately. So always crawl down on your smoke. Go on the lower end. The smoke will always try to go into the upper section of the atmosphere. Go down. A lot of oxygen should be out there. So, how do you react to the methods of fire responses? First, there is something called race that I go around it. You have to rescue, you have to A for alarm, C for confine, and E for extinguish. The race formula RACE, that's rescue, alarm, confine, and extinguish. Make sure that you know your responsibility in cases of any fire hazard. Whenever you understand, whenever you hear a fire alarm in your building, follow the exit road, follow the evacuation path. If you discover, you raise alarm. If you discover a fire, you raise alarm. It can be your MCP, whatever manual call point, whatever you do, you raise alarm. What you do, if you hear it out, who to call, you should be knowing it out. How to open the fire exit door, absolutely, this should be a part of your training. You might know the route, but you do not know how to open the fire exit door. Please, it is always pasted on the fire exit door. Do not panic. The guidelines are there. If you do not know, read through it. It will just take a few moments before you can be on our path to safety. So please assemble into an assemble area when fire doors should remain closed, because the fire door prevents the spread of the fire. This is very important. Fire door remain. Do not keep it open. The very fact that it is called fire door because it has certain job to fight against the fire hazard. And why, where the fire extinguishers are provided, that needs to be understood time and again. So ensure that you know the escape routes, what are they, the emergency exit doors, how to open them, location, types of firefighting equipment. This is what is very important. Location of the call point, any specific fire procedures, including the assembly points. Who are your reporting authorities, the safety managers, the safety team officer, whom to report when you find there are certain anomalies or bad practices being done out there. Please ensure these are the things that should be always be at the back of your mind, and you should be able to recall it. Do not, the one factor that I would always recommend to all my audiences is not to panic at point of time. Remember, fire is a very simple thing. What does it? First, F stands for what type of fire. Second word of alphabet is I, which is informing everyone about the fire, anybody and everyone. And how do you do it is your business. For the easiest way is to raise an alarm. The third alphabet is R. R is to react immediately. R is to restrict the fire. R is to isolate the fuel electricity supply altogether. So please react immediately, restrict the fire by closing the door, and remove fuel electricity supply altogether. And last one, not the least, is extinguish the fire by using the correct type of extinguishing media. Absolutely. With this, I come to an end of this wonderful presentation.